Szanowni Państwo,
Ladies and gentlemen, evidently the new is coming, the new social contract is coming, the new generation and the new politics. We are just about to hear another fascinating speech. A former MP, former member of the Polish MP, Vice President of the European People's Party. In 2014, he served as the Vice Minister of Foreign Affairs, and before that, in 2013, as the Minister of Administration and Digitalization in the cabinet of Prime Minister Donald Tusk. He was born in Warsaw, where he graduated from International Relations and English Studies at the University of Warsaw. He holds a PhD degree. He is the mayor of the capital city of Warsaw. He is also a member of the European Committee of Regions. Rafał Trzaskowski. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm very happy that I am in Łódź. Thank you for the invitation. I am honored that I will be able to speak with you tonight. The subject is very provocative, new generation, new politics. What does it mean? This means that there was the old generation and the old politics. So there is a question, what should be new? Whether we are going to criticize the former generation and politics, and then everybody gets excited on Twitter and in other media. I do hope that we have met here today to talk about serious things. The new politics has nothing to do with the age or the date of your birth. It's a paradox in a way. The man who will turn 50 in January is still considered as the hope of new generation. It's quite a paradox. So when we are talking about the new things, we should talk about the things we need today. We should talk about today's challenges. We should talk about the politics that should be implemented in the face of the things that are happening. So the politics is in our heads. It's not in our birth certificates. It doesn't matter when you were born, how long you were a politician. It all depends on whether you want the change or you want to stay in the same place, whether you want to look into the future or you want to keep looking back. So this is the answer to these serious questions: how to consider how politics, how Poland should look like in a few years' time, and how to find our place in this new reality to be able to start the dialogue with citizens, because it's most important today. I often speak about this, but I would like to repeat it for you. Very often we get into fake traps. So an attempt of labeling us is such a trap. I think that this division into left and right wing is not so clear. And today we should rather consider who has a good recipe for the future, who offers hope, who wants to be a party that will attract young people, who wants to build based on smile and consent, who wants to discuss really important things, not to just address what has been written on Twitter or said on TV. And this is an experience from the campus, the Poland of Future. A week ago, we had this campus, and young people are saying this. They want politicians to meet real challenges, that they are really tired, that we are all the time in these social media bubbles, and we don't attempt, and we don't even want to go outside of the social media. And we do not want to address the things that are really important. So if we really want to build a new politics, if we want to find energy and make contacts with people, we have to realize that you have to go outside to meet people, especially after the pandemic. You have to talk with people. You have to listen to what they've got to say. Political advisors often say, oh, the real politician, the real leader shouldn't consult anyone. He, she should know what to do. So this is the old politics. The new politics is the politics of talking with people. Everybody repeats it. I hear it during every single political campaign. Politicians want to show themselves as listeners, pictures. They want to be pictures in the streets of Polish cities and villages. And I think there is a simple test. Check whether the person you want to trust talks with people after the political campaign, election campaign. The second issue, which is very important to me. So, of course, we have to look into the future. We have to avoid left and right-wing labels. And if somebody says hope, young people, well, we do not want these labels. So the second important thing is talking about real problems. Very often we address topics which are quite important, but not most important. We often are involved into commenting on what somebody has said. So journalists always ask me during interviews, what can you say about Mr. X or Mr. Y? And I say, I don't know because I haven't followed Twitter. And then journalists are discouraged by such a statement. So addressing these main challenges and questions is about looking into the future. This new politics. It's not obvious. Because we can just decide that after the pandemic, we should look at the healthcare, modern education. We know that the priority topic is to overcome climate crisis. Yes, but we have to consider what is really important for people. What kind of solutions do we have for these problems? And it's not so easy, but you need to talk, you need to be interested, you need to check what is most important today. Very often we are trapped when we discuss everything based on what is happening right now, right here, without thinking how to address a problem systematically and how to build a strategy for the future. It's quite natural that today we are focused on what is going on our eastern border and that we are observing refugees, migrants. We want to help them. We are also talking about closing our borders. We are discussing about emergency state introduced by the Law and Justice Party, and we really ignore, we're really distracted from the key questions. What kind of migrant politics should we have in Poland? We forget that for the past 7 years we have been working in the European Union with a great contribution of Donald Tusk to develop this immigration-based policy. And the governments, the authorities were not using these tools. They were just saying that refugees are real evil, and they are just involved in unwinding the barbed wire on the border, along the borders. So what is fundamental is to stop being focused on what is happening now and here. Of course, we have to remember this, but first of all, we have to think of the Poland's shapes, of how to tackle the challenges. Young people during the Campus Polska were talking about the problem of psychology and psychiatry of small children. So children commit suicides, they are lost, they do not know how to cope with school life after months of staying at home. So we are opening, of course, the solution is to open new mental psychological support surgeries, and the government is unwilling to provide funding for this. So I don't want to say that we always know what to do. That's why we should talk with people. We should find out what is most important. School, education. I always talk about these aspects because I'm the mayor of the city of Łódź. I'm a lecturer at the university. For over 20 years I've been a lecturer. And also I am the father of school children. So we are having this discussion. What Minister Czarnek said today, it's a provocation. This man was appointed to the function of minister to annoy us, to think, to make us think, what rubbish will this man say today? And we are waiting. And of course, he sang another rubbish which annoys us, but nobody considers real challenges for the school today. We know that today it's not reasonable to just eat information. It's just easier to enter a website to find it, but it's better to teach children how to recognize what is true, what is false, how to find the right information in the chaos of so many pieces of information, how to find the core of the information. And we're not talking about this because we are focused on what is happening here and now. The modern politics should give hope, and the government, the authorities should know what is most important. And not only they have this knowledge, but they also give the hope that they will discuss the problems with the specialists, because nobody is the smartest person of the world. So they should know which way they should follow. And this is what we need for future, and to make sure that Poland is modern country. I would like to leave you with one thought. It's been also uttered during the campus. We had very good workshop during the campus. So we invited many people, not only politicians, to present us with their perspective on politics. We talked with some authors of popular books. So we were asking them how to use the story in literature, how to use the story to reach the politicians with the good message. So they first said something that was quite painful. They said that Polish politicians cannot build the story, that we are unable to say about our plans, to talk about our plans in an interesting things. Białoszewski said that if you want to tell a story, first of all, you have to know the direction you want to follow. Secondly, your story has to be interesting. It also has to refer to your experience. It has to be surprising too. It can't be just naive and simple. Even if you go to your aunt's birthday, don't tell such stories. Modernity, in this chaos of information, at the time when we are unable to be focused just for several minutes, but we have to learn how to tell the story about what we intend to do. And sometimes it happens, and this is the main threat to all the people who want to have the real change, people who want the civic society, the state that respects some institutions. Populists actually are better in telling stories. Their stories are quite simple, but it doesn't mean that we should give up. The modern politics is a skill of telling a story about what we want to do. It's a skill to be able to express our thoughts clearly. And we have to show that we are brave enough to talk about difficult things. People often ask me what kind of mistakes were made by the Civic platform, and then, we've got the headline, Trzaskowski is admitting that the Civic platform has made some mistakes. I also was asked this question during the campus, so the audience were often saying that we allowed our opponents to be the only owner of patriotism. We mustn't forget that we also have to build the patriotism. It has to be the patriotism of the community, the patriotism that facilitates development. And it's easy to tell this story. We want education that will teach how to think, how to work in a team, that we want responsible politics that doesn't only consider the climate policy, but always mentions the consequences. We want to build. Nobody attacks us now. We do not have to give our blood, spill our blood.
And that's the thought which is of supreme importance for me. If we want to give hope to people, if we want to show that modernity is not about wearing jeans from time to time or using an internet app or being able to use internet media in a better way, but modernity is about thinking of the future and considering how to tell the story that will be convincing for others and how to find the most important thing, namely the balance between promoting each one's aspiration and strengthening the community in which we live, because this is fundamental to reconcile the best of both worlds. In order to give hope, we have to draw conclusions from what happened before. We must accept the criticism of our mistakes and not live only today. We have to think about the future. I am absolutely convinced that after today's authority, if the opposition wins the election, will have to build its narration in such a way and change its habits to build the policy, the politics, which is the politics of open dialogue and problem solving. And it requires a lot of courage. When I look at my colleagues, I'm sure we are ready for it, regardless of who was born when and what political seniority they have. The new courageous thinking is here and not in your ID. Your participation in the undertaking of redesigning Poland after what is happening now relies on exerting pressure on politicians and demanding more. I say that it's more difficult for us than for other political competitors because more is demanded from us, but it's good because it means an obligation that is the driving power for a change. Without a real change in the mindset, in constructing the reality, we cannot say that we effectively and reliably face that reality. Thank you very much.
Dziękuję bardzo za tę wypowiedź.
Thank you very much for this speech. If you heard what I heard, that was an invitation for conversation, and this is the time for it. Our volunteers will come to you with a microphone if you do have a question to the mayor of the city of Warsaw. We are going to collect 3 questions, and Mr. Trzaskowski will answer them. We have 3 hands up. I will take my mask off. I'm vaccinated. I have a question related to young people. We know that the whole demography is changing very fast. The fact that we think about seniors means that we soon will have to think about young people because there will be fewer of them in the society. So the question is how to give empowerment, authority, how to include young people and not only talk to them. For me, this is what we reproach to the Civics platform. How to do it? Do you have questions and solutions? The second question, on the left-hand side, the 4th row. Jakub Dyński, as a participant of Campus, first, I would like to thank you for the whole initiative. It was a fantastic experience. During the speed meeting, I could say that Campus was everything I expected it to be, and I feel I can tell it on behalf of all participants. And my question is, what did you and other organizers conclude from Campus? Did you hear from us anything that showed how to approach the future that we as young people can help you create? Thank you. And the third question on the right-hand side. Me, and people with liberal opinions. Will we have somebody to vote for in the next elections? Let me start with the last question. Certainly you will. Yep, I do understand what is in between the lines. Not many people are ready to admit they are liberals. We're not so willing to make such confessions. At the very beginning, I said I try to avoid labels because they can do more harm than good. But we all stem from the same liberal root. But we also change our opinions, our stance, depending on the reality and based on what we observe. But it does not mean we are not liberals. However, it is different than it used to be back in the 1990s. In the West, people used to say that if somebody had not been socialist as a young person, then will become a pig later on. In our case, it was different. My generation was raised during the communism. We were liberals or libertarians, but under the influence of reality, everybody matures and reaches other conclusions. We are all liberals, but not as strict and dogmatic as our senior colleagues. We try to avoid the dogma. And that's what recent events taught us, the financial crisis, the pandemic, that simple liberal formulas do not work in every situation. Despite the fact that Professor Balcerowicz does not like it, not always privatization is the best answer to everything. So please don't be afraid. I think that anybody with liberal political stance have somebody to vote for. When we talked about it, I think there are fewer of us than we think. As for the lessons from the campus, there are lots of them. The general lessons from the campus boiled down to saying that the campus gave us a lot of hope that there are many young people willing to get involved. Not necessarily are they willing to get involved in political parties. They want to get involved in action. They are perfectly prepared, full of energy. And if somebody wants to notice it and build their ideas on how to use the energy, a lot can be done in Poland. The intuition does not come from nowhere. There were so many politicians telling, oh, it's good to manage young people, to manage the youth. And they had different plans. The deal for the youth, politics for the youth, a new chapter for the youth. But that's not about it. It's not about having one or two proposals for the youth. We have to mention what matters for you: safe jobs, availability of flats, and such ideas have to be included in every political program. But the point is to step into your shoes and perceive the reality through your opinions in order to see the world in a different way. After the campus, I felt that previously I had been dealing and talking about some tertiary things, and that I should focus on what is most important for your generation, because after all, you are going to take over from us and steer and control the country and its institutions. I know it sounds like a cliche, but I'm really happy to learn such opinions about the campus, and we have to think what we can do in the future. It's not about opening the door in front of the young generation, because it's obvious that we should do it, but it does not suffice. The point is to involve young people differently than we used to. Not only to give them the membership card in the young people's political parties, but we should consider how to talk to people, how to break the ice, that we should clarify that the image we can see on the media, and I don't refer only to public television, that it's sometimes falsified or distorted, as it does not show all the aspects relevant for politicians. And there are lots of similar tasks. Social involvement is something that we have been discovering in Poland for 30 years, and this energy is well managed by local governments, but other countries had been doing it for hundreds of years, and that's important for us to build a civic society and to raise the interest and not to keep you away from all these initiatives, but to attract you to them. The fact that we guarantee a special place in the election list does not suffice. It is important, but we have to answer the question what we can do to be visible, to try to break the manipulation wall, which sometimes hinders the image of the reality, and how to do it systematically. And these are the challenges that we are going to take together with you, with those who participated in the campus and who want to work with us. And the last sentence in this part, I would like to emphasize that after the campaign, I realized we are not going to win the election without strong political parties. It's not that we are going to have startups that are going to solve the problem. We have political parties, we have to build on them, and they have to win. If we don't like them, we should modify them from the inside. We should take advantage of the energy in NGOs, in local governments, in people who want to get involved and strengthen their local communities. And that's something we should focus on. And I do hope that in the subsequent months and years, we are going to do it together. And there was also the question about empowerment. I think that the question about campus answers it. The answer to the question about the campus is the answer to this question. Very often young people ask, if you opened the door to the political parties, introduce young people to the lists during the elections. Yep, you are right. In the Civics platform, we're going to change the charter to facilitate it. And that's really good, but that's not enough. And that is why politics is one of the most competitive jobs in the world and a difficult one. So it's not that everybody who is in the list can be an MP. It's not always reasonable. Not everybody becomes a Wimbledon champion at the age of 19. But it's about being able to manage the energy in a completely different way, not only through political parties. I had only one political episode before 2009. I was the head of the school government, and then I got involved in the election of in 1989 because communism tried to indoctrinate us. So the experience of our generation was to counteract the indoctrination. Can we think of anything more important than getting involved in school governments, university governments to combat the indoctrination? the empowerment, the legitimacy is to get involved in any form of action, and we should remember to treat young people in a serious way, but not like a square peg in a round hole, young, inexperienced. It's not a matter of who was born when. I know a lot of young people who have the mentality of those who could fit the communist times, and the elderly who keep on learning and who are hungry for knowledge. And sometimes they take advantage of the knowledge they gain. Ladies and gentlemen, 3 subsequent questions at the back of the room. Victoria Kostrzewa, good evening. I have a question to the situation of Secretary for Children. It is in a derelict question, state, and about teachers. We know that there are scarcities of teachers and still vacancies. Is your party ready to change or intends to change anything so that there are no scarcities of psychologists and teachers to keep them here? We can open new psychiatry centers if there are no people to work there. What happens if we open modern schools, but there are no people to teach there? So the question is, if you win the election, would you do anything so that people don't have to wait for months if somebody has committed a suicide attempt? Okay, so a question from the front row. Good evening. Andrzej Saramonowicz. I have a question referring to what you said. You mentioned that restoring the importance of the healthcare center and education would be important in the post-COVID times. Then you quoted Zygmunt Miłoszewski and said that you need to have the right story. What I constantly lack is that we don't mention culture. And in my opinion, culture is the story. This is not political marketing, but this is the cultural foundation. And depending on how you define culture, and it must not be left alone. That's how education is defined. We are not able to repair or define education without culture. Your party and Szymon Hołownia did not mention the word culture either. Leszek Jeżdżewski was the only one to say the word culture. He referred to Andrzej Sapkowski. We can drive German cars, French wines, Italian cheeses, but we must have our own culture. Law and Justice treats culture instrumentally, but still builds a cultural narration. So my question is, where you place culture in your program, because I am never able to learn it. But please forgive me, but I am an elderly person, so I dare ask 2 questions, because there are 2 young people inside me. The other one is about the empowerment, not the empowerment of young people, but you as the politicians. Let me refer to what Szymon Hołownia said quite rightly, that the difference between the opposition and the ruling party is that opposition only communicates, and ruling is like empowerment, the opportunity to turn concepts into action. I was not able to ask the question to Szymon Hołownia. There was no opportunity to ask questions. So how do you want to ensure agency, since the polls are quite ruthless and no political party is increasing the threshold? So how to get the agency? You can get it once a certain level of conciliation is achieved before. Neither in the case of the Civics platform or Poland 2050 can I see the readiness to conduct such discussions. So I would like to ask how you imagine it, remembering that, regrettably, Civics platform won the election quite a long time ago. And the last question in this part. I was born and raised in Belgium, so I speak and understand Polish, but I can make some mistakes because I was not learning in Poland. In Europe, we have thousands of people who have Polish roots, who are of Polish origin, and we observe what is happening in Poland. It's really painful to see our colleagues, our families who no longer talk to one another because of their political stance. If we want to talk about them, talk with them about it and explain something, they say we don't have the right to interfere because we don't live here, we don't pay taxes, we are not the real Poles. So that's my question. What can we do to help? What can we do to fight for free Poland, for free Poles against populism?
Po pierwsze,
I will start with the last question. My father taught me a lot of things. I remember that he always said, always run away from people who say they know answers to all questions. If somebody says that they know everything, just run away from such people. And the second recommendation is run away from everyone who says, I'm a true Pole, I'm a true Catholic. Run away from such people, avoid them. So I have problems with people who introduce themselves as real Poles, real liberals, real Catholics, or any other real true. The adjective doesn't change anything. Of course, there is a huge role for everyone who lives abroad and who care about Poland. And any smart country respects the diaspora. It can provide the basis to convince people about some narratives. They can support us with their experience. And it's very important. And nowadays, it's impossible. Years ago, probably we didn't care about this sufficiently. And it's very important. I think that today the biggest part for Poles who live abroad. They should convince people that people shouldn't turn their backs to Poland. I know many colleagues who are fed up with Poland. Law and Justice Party says that Brussels occupies us. So it's a huge threat. So we have to calm such people down. We have to tell them that Poland is not just the ruling party. I've got a trick. When I'm speaking to foreign guests, I'm always quoting Schwarzenegger, and I'm saying, we will be back. So this is what we have to tell them, that normal people will be back. As regards Andrzej's questions, of course I can accept all the blame towards the Civic platform and the coalition. Well, we won the election 2011, 2018. I don't want to say that the situation is really bright, but it's hard to be efficient if you live in the country which doesn't respect the rights of the opposition. I was in the parliament for 3 years. I could see other parliaments. I cooperate with MPs throughout the world, and the opposition has the right to submit amendments. They are respected, the remarks are observed, they are represented in audit institutions in Poland. All these things have been taken away from the opposition, and somehow we have accustomed to this situation. Yes, Andrzej, it has been taken away from us. Don't smile. And it's not our fault. It's not the opposition's fault that we live in the country where all the rights of the political minority are not respected and observed. It's true. The opposition cannot be very effective in the parliament. If we are effective and efficient, Law and Justice Party makes the reassumption. I don't know whether this happens in other normal countries. The chair of the committee, well, there's always the ranking member who is represented in the parliamentary commission. In Poland, these rights are not observed, or the agency of the self-governments that are in the hands of the opposition. If you're asking me what does the platform does for the culture, we can talk about the years of our ruling. I can be critical, but please come to Warsaw. A lot of independent, wonderful culture is functioning because self-governments do not allow to destroy the culture, and we do not allow to control it. At least we do it where we can. And we allow freedom. Everybody asks me, have you seen this display? Do you know what happened? And I said, no, we do not have censorship for culture. Everybody says to us, you are all the same. Have you ever heard me or Donald Tusk who would say, there is nothing to talk about. We are not going to talk with anyone. We have to be independent. Nobody said it. But I have this feeling that the other party is always getting offended. If we are mature, we have to say, we have to communicate. We have to strike an agreement. If somebody asks me whether the Civic platform will be able to rule by itself, no. Simple answers. But everybody thinks that we've got two more years to go, that everybody builds their identity. I think that this situation is an emergency situation. We do not live in the full parliamentary democracy. The rights are always violated. And I keep talking about this. So this agency is possible. Teachers and psychiatry, very important topic. It is important. Well, have you heard media talking about it? We, as the self-governments, do absolutely everything we can do. I think that destroying Polish education is the biggest sin of the Law and Justice Party. It will be a waste. It will be a loss of many years. We, self-governments, we did a lot. All teachers and doctors in Warsaw kept saying, well, our salary is like that, but the self-government is doing what they can. So the self-governments found money to pay for extra classes, for extra tuition, for pupils. You are asking me about what we should do about schools. We have introduced lessons to talk hatred, talk about what is going on internet. We want to talk about this, and the self-government is funding this kind of lessons. Educational activities, civic activities, how to use internet, so on and so forth. We do what we can. There is an idea how to manage this, but the problem is that the Law and Justice Party want to take all the money from us. So we won't be able to spend money for these extra activities. We will only pay for public transport. We won't be able to fight for the independent culture, which is of fundamental importance. You cannot talk about everything in 15 minutes. So we are responsible for cities, towns, villages, regions. And when we are there, you can make us responsible for this. But when we are talking about the opposition, well, we all have to be mature enough to have communication, to be able to communicate with others. Ladies and gentlemen, our time is up, but the good news is that Mr. Mayor Trzaskowski will be still available for you during the break, so you can still ask him your questions. So thank you very much for becoming involved in this dialogue, and let's have a round of applause to Mayor Rafał Trzaskowski, who has been our guest.
It's not always easy to recognize. It may look like this, or like this. It may be a burden, but it is a responsibility that we embrace nonetheless. But if it means this for one person and this for someone else, maybe it ultimately means being there for one another. It isn't handed to us, but we know where to find it. And how it feels, how it tastes, and what it sounds like when we finally have it. It means different things to different people, but for many, it means everything. And if we all fight for it, it will eventually bring us together.
Work is different now. We're commuting less, virtually meeting more. Separating work life and life can feel challenging. It's easy to forget that to thrive at work, we need to take care of ourselves. Microsoft Viva Insights offers new experiences to balance productivity and well-being. Personal insights help you stay at your best and most productive. Add structure to your remote workday by opting for a virtual commute, carving out time to have a productive start in the morning and mindfully disconnect in the evening. Protect time before your calendar fills up for focused work, coaching, and learning. Take regular mental breaks with Headspace, tapping into dedicated moments of mindfulness. Use emotional check-ins to tune into your day-to-day mindset and well-being. Strengthen team bonds with Stay Connected experiences that prompt you to praise collaborators, schedule one-on-ones, and follow up on pending commitments and outstanding tasks. Insights for managers and leaders offer windows into how work happens and the impact on employee well-being. Identify where teams may be isolated and take action to break down silos. Quickly discover opportunities to prevent burnout, promote coaching and development, and boost engagement. You and your team's well-being is important, especially in times of change. Taking care of one another allows you to thrive and your organization to build resilience. Experience how new well-being insights in Viva can help.
Liberté Talks to co ważne. Seria Liberté Talks realizowana jest dzięki wsparciu Google oraz Państwa darowizną. Na podcast Lex Publica zaprasza Zuzanna Nowicka.